Choosing your major can feel like one of the hardest things to do in your life. On one hand, you're 17, 18 years old, and you're probably like, well, how the heck do I know what I want to do for the rest of my life? And on the other hand, it's like, dude, you're 17, 18 years old. You need to start to figure out what you want to do for the rest of your life. One of the big problems is a lot of high school and even college students just don't even know what majors are even out there. I mean, if you asked me what marketing or product management or anything like that was in high school, I would have been like, I don't even know what you're talking about. I probably knew like 3 or 4 routes. It was business, computer science, engineering, and then become a lawyer or a doctor, so 5. If it wasn't one of those, then I'd never heard of it before, and that means that I would have never even looked into that major at whatever university I was looking for. And then another problem is this.
I want to tell you how I actually started college. I came into RIT as a computer engineering major, thinking that this was the only feasible way to break into tech other than being a software engineer. I took an Intro to Java programming course in high school and hated it. I found it very difficult and thought that a hardware-centric major would be a better fit for me. Turned out it was one of the biggest mistakes I have ever made. I despised going to my Intro to Computer Engineering lab every week. I felt no connection with the equipment we were using, which included breadboards and multimeters. It felt very boring and lacked the human interaction which I loved. I always envisioned myself working with individuals in order to create a software product, and I knew that I couldn't achieve that goal if I stayed in computer engineering. It became increasingly clear to me that this was the wrong major and I needed to make a switch.
That's Amia, and she goes to the Rochester Institute of Technology, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate to what she just talked about. The same way you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, a class shouldn't determine a major. Figuring out your major requires experimentation. That can mean actually having a conversation with your parents and asking them some questions, maybe even asking some older siblings if you've got them, and then if you're in my case where you're the oldest sibling, maybe even going and looking at like sports or clubs or your high school alumni. Now, if you're already in college, let's just say you're past your freshman year and you're debating on switching your major or not, you've got student clubs, you've got a whole bunch of different organizations around your school that you can go in there and ask them questions. I know it's super scary, and I remember thinking back like, oh my God, like I don't want to feel like the dumb person. But as I've started to learn and talk to more people, especially like super smart people, is the dumber that you act, you actually get more information that you really need. So if you have a question to ask, please go out there and ask the right person. Sometimes that person is your career advisor, but a lot of times it's the person who's actually doing the job. So once you've got all that information, you can then make like an educated guess, and your decision-making process should look something like this.
I contemplated management information systems, but I didn't like how majority of the courses were business heavy. I wanted a technical major that gave me a good foundation when entering the tech field, but also had the option of venturing into the creative side of tech. After long hours of deliberation, I finally decided to change my major to software engineering. Rather than a typical computer science major, software engineering has multiple focal areas which include the software development lifecycle and how project management plays a role in it.
Now, does it have to be that thought out and that fleshed out if you're going into college or anything like that? Probably not, but that should be the goal. I've talked to too many students where I'm like, hey, like, what's your major? Okay, your marketing major. Okay, why do you want that? And then they'll respond like, I want to go into marketing. What does that even mean? Like, marketing as a whole is so broad. You've got SEO, you've got e-commerce, you've got content marketing, all these different facets. And if you just say that I want to get into marketing, it's a recipe for disaster. I think this is one of the biggest problems that college students get into. They're like, oh, I get into this really broad major and then hopefully I graduate with a job. You can think of like your college experience as a sandwich, and your major is like the 2 pieces of bread. Bread is great, bread is delicious, but if you don't have things in the middle, it's not going to be a complete sandwich. Those things in the middle are your elective classes that you can take, the clubs that you can join, the people that you can meet. And in college, sometimes you can get that pre-packaged sandwich, or you can create your own.
I was reading about it for fun, and I came across the work of the Penn Nudge Unit, which is led by thought leaders like Mitesh Patel, David Ash, and Kevin Volop, really my role models. And I quickly realized that I aspired to be in a position like theirs to help pioneer this relatively new field. So I looked through a variety of major and minor combinations that would equip me with the skills needed to become a leader in this field, but it seemed impossible. And that's when I was confident that I wanted to create my own major and forge my own path.
Now, don't get me wrong, creating your own major isn't the easiest thing in the world, but if you do it right, it can be super beneficial. But with all this talk, do majors matter?
In my eyes, major definitely matters, but it's not solely the knowledge that you gain from your major's coursework. I see majors and minors as an opportunity to strengthen your personal brand and also your peer and faculty network. I like to think that I learn just as much from my professional experiences as I do from my coursework, if not more. And given the niche field that I'm interested in, my major has been an amazing vehicle to get my foot in the door for these different professional experiences.
So I personally think that majors matter, but not probably in the way that you think. Those last two clips were from Saketh, who is a junior at the University of Maryland, and this is why I think he thinks that majors matter. Since he's building his own major, he can customize the classes that he actually wants to take. That means that he's getting the relevant experience that he thinks he's going to need to graduate with a job or get into grad school or PhD school, whatever he ends up deciding. The difference between that and how a quote-unquote regular major works is that you typically don't get to choose that many customizations in your schedule. You might have a few electives that you can choose from here or there, but for the most part, your schedule is set with the core classes. This means that when you graduate, you're going to look exactly the same as everyone else who's graduating with the same degree as you. Maybe your GPA is up or down compared to them, or maybe you've got some more clubs or some less clubs compared to others, but for the most part, you look about the same on a piece of paper. Majors matter because they give you access, and that's what's important. Depending on your major, you can get access to certain clubs, certain classes, and probably most importantly, specific professors. Now, this is something that I didn't do, but I really wish that I did, because when you go to your school, you get access to all of these professors' resumes. And when you look at these resumes, you get to see what industries they've worked in, what industries they're currently working in, where they're consulting, and all these different sort of things. If you're interested in marketing and you just go to the marketing classes, that's great, and you're going to get some sort of value from that. But if you really know that you want to get into SEO marketing and you see that there is one professor that has done SEO work with their career, you make sure that you take that person's class no matter how related it is to your major, and then you go to office hours. For most of your majors, you're going to get a good amount of value from the classes that you get, but that real value is getting that one-on-one time with your professors. They've got access into industries, into more notes, into more resources than you can ever imagine, and the craziest thing is no one uses them. Now, what about some final pieces of advice?
My biggest piece of advice for students is to reach out to your academic advisor to see what related majors are out there and dig into your network.
Career advisors are a good starting point, but you also have to realize, and this is something that I tell students all the time, is that that career advisor is talking to hundreds, if not thousands, if not tens of thousands of students. It's going to be incredibly hard for that person to know exactly who you are and what you want to do. So you want to take it into your own hands and understand your degree like it's the back of your hand. Know what classes you need to take, what electives are there, what prereqs you need to take, and all those different sort of things, because I can guarantee you that that career advisor, as much as they want to help you, it's going to be really hard for them to give you personalized advice every single time. Now check out this advice.
One of my favorite influencers, Tom Bilyeu, once said that it's all about architecture and not archaeology. It means that one isn't naturally born with a passion that'll eventually reveal itself after enough time in searching, aka archaeology. Instead, one has to actively work towards building their passion through experimenting, learning, and gaining experience, aka architecture. With this in mind, in the context of deciding what major to choose, my recommendation is to always strategically spread yourself thin during high school, and if needed, even during the first 1 or 2 years of your undergrad education. Try taking that intro-level comp sci course and that intro-level psych course. Listen to podcasts and TED Talks by both thought leaders in medicine and economics. This summer, maybe pick up a book on both sociology and finance. These different experiences can help you narrow down which fields you thoroughly enjoy learning about and which ones you don't. The goal is to gain a better understanding of how you want to change the world and how different fields will allow you to make that impact.
Like I said earlier, experiment. That's literally the only way that I think you're going to be able to figure out what you actually want to do. Even if you just sit around playing Xbox all day and you think that you want to get into the video game world, until you talk to people in the video game space, you won't realize the different types of jobs that are in there. Most people might just think, oh, to get into video games, I need to get into video game design. But there's so many different facets of the video game space that you've probably never heard of. You've got the audio space that designs all the sounds. You've got the marketing people who have to sell the product. You've got the finance people that got to make sure that you have the money to sell the product. There are all these different sort of facets in every single industry that's out there. And your job as a college student, I think, is to put in the work, finesse it, and then talk to as many people to figure out what industry is right for you. There are so many different careers out there that I've never heard of, that you've never heard of, and the only way you will hear of it is if you talk to the right person or if you're in the right place at the right time. And, well, that's about it. I'm out.